Before we begin, first of all, I want to welcome everyone here, and in a minute, I'll turn it over to our moderator, Epi Cabo. But before we begin, I want to just point out some details for those of you who are joining us through the Zoom link because you are a voting delegate for today's meeting. You will not have camera or microphone access to the meeting. So just remember that we can't see or hear you. The interpersonal chat feature is disabled on this meeting, but if you have specific questions for the presenters, please type them in the question and answer box and they will be processed by the moderator. This meeting is being live streamed to YouTube for our guests and visitors, and we welcome all of you who have joined us through the YouTube link. Only voting delegates or those with business are permitted in the Zoom webinar to maintain the integrity of our voting process and decision making. When it's time to vote, a box with a question will appear on the screen. Simply click your vote, yes, no, abstain, and it will be registered. Voting will remain open for 30 seconds, and at the conclusion of voting, results will be displayed to all participants and announced by the moderator. If you would like to make a motion only, use the raise hand feature on Zoom. There's the little place where you can click on it and it will raise your hand. You'll see a little blue hand next to your name or in your next to your name. For purposes of archives and appropriate meeting minutes, the webinar in Zoom is being recorded. And you can also, if you weren't able to download your materials, you can still get them at the link that's on your screen. So please go ahead and take a minute to jot down that link if you still need some of the meeting documents. And now I want to invite our moderator, Epi Cabo, to begin our meeting. Epi, you need to unmute yourself.
Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing? Before we start, we have to have our worship. Let's invoke the presence of our God in our special conference meeting. So, worship team, please start.
Good morning. I am Sharon MacArthur, member of Sycamore Church and associate member of Berkeley Chinese Community Church Bay Association. I bring greetings. Whatever is happening in our communities and the world, it is good to gather to worship. I've had the honor of putting together this morning's worship with the help of Melinda McLean and Liz Armstrong. Thank you, Melinda and Liz. Also, thank you, Leanne Samara, Cindy Wong, Nadia Tavera, Miwa Jones, and Jake Yan Lan for participating in the call to worship and reminding us that the churches in our conference worship in many languages. Jake's church, by the way, is in the Golden Gate Association and not the Bay Association. And Michael Patrick Ellard and Vladimir Paeste, thank you for providing us with worshipful moments during our business meeting to remind us of whose we are, why we are meeting, and why we are doing what we are doing. Let us begin with the call to worship.
Good morning. Tayo ay nagtitipunan, nagmagkakasama habang nasa ilalim ng mundong winasak ng COVID-19. Ngunit bagangamit na sisira, bukas pa rin sa papahayag ng kakahamang magkatatahonan. We gather together while sheltering in place in a world broken by COVID-19, yet broken, open to reveal amazing truths.
Cindy, you need to unmute.
Good morning, everybody. 我們敬畏地進入了上帝的殿堂，我們認識到這座殿堂超越了以前的想象，超越了磚瓦結構，超越了人們的實際聚會。 We enter God's house with awe, a house we now recognize as something beyond former imaginings, beyond bricks and mortar structure, beyond physical gathering of people.
Nos regocijamos a medida que descubrimos y adoptamos nuevas formas de fortalecer las conexiones que tenemos entre nosotros y con Dios, al enfrentar nuestra ansiedad y la resistencia a herramientas tecnológicas que facilitan la adoración y el compañerismo juntos. We rejoice as we discover and embrace new ways to strengthen our connections with one another and with God, as we confront our anxiety about and resistance to technological tools that facilitate worshiping and fellowship together.
Good morning, I am Miwa Jones. 神が世界を癒し、そして和解させるためのパートナーとして私たちを呼んでくださったことをとても光栄に思います。すべての創造物、違う民族、文化、伝統を持つ人々、土地、海、空気、これらすべてで神の愛すべきコミュニティとなります。We are honored and humble when God calls us to be God's partners in healing and reconciling the world, its creatures, its people of all ethnic cities, cultures and traditions, its lands, seas, and air, that we become God's beloved community.
Josan and Talofa, o Maya, i nā tātou tāpua i atu i lea tua whetalai. Ia tātou whaia lea mio tonu, nau lea lofa, ma whea wai ma ia ma le loto wha maulalo. Come, let us worship our still speaking God by following the call to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with our God during this special meeting and beyond.
From our sacred works in Scripture, Micah, chapter 6, verse 8. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? And from the Psalms, Psalm 119, I will meditate on your precepts and fix my eyes on your ways. I will delight in your statutes. I will not forget your word. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path.
Dear friends, siblings all, please pray with me. More of you, O Christ, less of me. More of you, O Christ, less of me. More of you, O Christ, less of me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts draw us closer to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So about 25 years ago, when I was ordained at the community church in Mill Valley, we read this text from Micah. And Phil Porter and Cynthia Winton Henry, who preached at that service, Phil in particular said, "Thanks, Melinda, for picking some bumper sticker worthy theology." And everyone laughed, of course. But Phil pointed out that I was headed into becoming an HIV/AIDS chaplain, working primarily with women living with HIV and AIDS. And he said, "You're going to need something you can put in your back pocket that will carry you through the hard times, that will carry you through the tests that you will face in ministry, that is easy to remember when you're so stressed out you don't know what day it is." So this text from Micah, to seek justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God, is the sort of thing that's really useful in these days, because we're sure enough being tested. Everything is new, and some old injustices continue to crop up. I'm also mindful that in our congregation, the Good Table United Church of Christ, coming soon to El Sobrante, California, and formerly known as Mira Vista UCC in El Cerrito, we sing a song about this text from Micah that many of you may know by Christopher Grundy. And recently I found out how important having a song of a text like this can feed your soul. When our vice moderator, Wendy Wisely, earned her black belt in an Indonesian martial art and took a 48-hour test that included 25 fights and a 10-mile hike through the woods at night and hours of meditation, pushing her to the very brink of her ability to function and her ability to stay centered spiritually and emotionally. And we'd talked before this test, and we talked about mantras and prayers and things she might use in her meditation. But one of the things we did not talk about was the song I'm about to share with you by Christopher Grundy, Every Step of the Way. And yet, Wendy said, in the middle of the 10-mile hike, in the woods in Tilden Park, with animals growling and howling and all kinds of songs she couldn't understand, she found that this song came to her and helped her. I hope it will be a blessing to you, and you can take it through whatever test you're facing. And heaven knows there's a lot of tests. Not just the pandemic, but I know many people in my congregation are mourning the death of parents. I also know that, especially for folks of Asian descent, they have had to face a lot of discrimination and hate crimes, including being pushed off BART trains. And of course, we're all incredibly mindful of the tests of our character that have come through the lynching of George Floyd in Minneapolis and many other crimes against African American folks and Hispanic folks. And those of us who are white need to both speak up and listen to our sisters and brothers of color as these horrible events unfold. And so I offered this little back pocket version of Micah. Help me do the justice to be done today. Help me love kindness in all I do or say. Let me walk humbly with you, oh God, I pray. Every step of the way, every step of the way. Help me do the justice to be done today. Help me love kindness in all I do or say. Let me walk humbly with you, oh God, I pray. Every step of the way, every step of the way. So whatever test you're facing, may you seek justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God. Amen.
Thank you, Sharon and worship team, for helping us ground today's meeting and work in worshiping God. Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing? Great, thank you. I call the Northern California Nevada Conference a special conference meeting to order. I am Epi Fahigal and Cabo, your moderator, member of Faith Community Church, Oakland Bay Association. Welcome to our first virtual special meeting of the Northern California Nevada Conference of the United Church of Christ. Who could have imagined that we are meeting by Zoom in the year 2020? Unexpected events have necessitated new norms of living. Uncertainty and social distancing are just a couple of these new norms. Such drastic and challenging changes have hit us hard, not only our country, but the world as a whole. I am here today with mixed emotions. I have looked forward to our annual June gathering at Sonoma State University, but the gathering was canceled because of pandemic safety precautions. I am sad because I cannot see you. I cannot hug, fellowship, break bread, and worship together this year. So we have to adapt, adjust ourselves to new ways of doing and behaving. I am glad, however, that we can tap to our creativity and imagination to make this year's annual meeting happen and be glad, gifted with unexpected blessings. Now, let us imagine we are either sitting or standing beside each other as we do conference business. But because we are next to one another virtually, one unexpected blessing is that we'll be focused on listening to what is being presented to us in the moment, instead of probably whispering comments and asides to our neighbors, right? But enough of this for now. And hello again. I'm so glad we can come together today virtually and able to have a sense of everyone present. It's been a joy and honor and privilege to serve as your moderator for the past 2 years. I am certainly grateful for your warm welcome as I have come to see you, whether it was a surprise or planned visit. I have worshiped, participated during your worship services, installations, ordinations, association meetings, anniversary celebrations, and other church-related events. I truly believe personal presence is invaluable. Visits have provided incredible opportunities to meet new brothers and sisters in Christ and strengthen existing connections and engage in good conversation. Through these fellowship gatherings, my faith journey has been enriched. Thank you for your presence, for your confidence and support. And thank you for your presence, especially today. As a manifestation, as our conference minister, Diane Weibel say, we are the hands and feet to build the body of Christ. God's blessings to us all. And let us begin. I call on our conference minister, registrar, to give us the update on registration.
Thank you, Epi. As the registrar for the Northern California Nevada Conference of the United Church of Christ, I am pleased to report that we have registered for today 200 delegates.
Wow.
75 churches. The breakdown for that is we have 100 authorized ministers registered. We have 3 youth and young adult delegates registered, 97 lay registrants, adult lay registrants, and 25 guests. To meet our quorum requirements, no more than 50% of our registered delegates are authorized ministers. And yes, that's correct. We have exactly 50%. More than 50% of our churches are represented, and the answer to that is also yes. We have 68.18% of our churches represented. And then today we need to have 60% of registered delegates present. We currently have 167, and that number keeps climbing, and we need 120 to meet our requirement. So I report that we are in compliance with our quorum regulations.
Well, hearing from our registrar, really, we have a quorum. Yeah, we are now in session. I'd like to introduce to you our conference staff. I would say it's skeletal staff, 4 incredible staff. The Reverend Dr. Diane Weibel, Conference Minister, Reverend Davina Jones, Associate Conference Minister, Reverend Daniel Rose Jones, Associate Conference Minister, our technology guru and financial guru, I would say also. And our new conference administrator, Elaine Johnson, who have taken the place of Joy Davis, who had been with us for more than 2 decades. So thank you, staff, for all what you have done to us. And they're also part of the annual gathering planning team. And we also have members of the annual meeting business committee, Benjamin Broadbent, Joy Koranich, Dicom, Melissa, and of course, Jeff Spencer, and our scribe, David Gregory. So I'm sorry I was not able to put your name there, David. So thank you so much. I will call on and conference council members. Those are our sort of board of directors for the conference. Thank you. I would call on Daniel to orient us or walk through us the voting process. Either Daniel or Diane.
This is Daniel. I'll take that. Thank you, moderator. My name is Daniel Ross Jones, one of your associate conference ministers and a member of First Congregational Church in Palo Alto, Santa Clara Association. The way that we are going to be doing voting today, hopefully will be a little bit easier in some ways because you won't have to raise a name badge. So folks that are here within Zoom, what's gonna happen is whenever there's a vote to be taken, you're gonna see a little dialog box that will pop up on your screen and then a series of choices. Those choices usually be yes, no, or abstain. We'll keep that open for about 30 seconds, at least 30 seconds, and we'll keep it open longer if we notice that you know, the voting results are really strange versus the total number of people in the meeting. And once voting is done, once everybody has registered their vote, we will then be able to present that to you. So you'll be able to see what the result is. Our moderator will see it in real time. And then the votes are recorded within the system so that our scribe is able to record that appropriately in the minutes of the meeting. So we'll have a number of times, of course, we know that we have some business in front of us today. We'll have a number of times to test this, but just to be on the safe side, I actually want to be able to have us test our vote right now. So in just a few moments, you're going to notice that there will be a poll that's going to show up on your screen with some options for you to vote. We'll leave that open for at least 30 seconds, and then we'll see what the end result is. 5-second warning. All right, voting has closed.
Uh,
I would like to say as a personal point of privilege that I am very appreciative of a certain outcome towards the bottom of that. And I know that our conference minister appreciates at least 9 of you, especially right now. Thank you very much for participating in this vote. That is how our votes will happen throughout the meeting today. And I return the dais to our moderator.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, today's special conference meeting agenda will address only 2 items, and they are the adoption of the proposed amendment to the bylaws and election. I call on Melissa Tumaneng, our conference vice moderator, to move for the adoption of the agenda. Melissa?
I am Melissa Tumaneng, member of Danville Congregational Church, also member of the annual meeting business committee and the conference council. I move for the adoption of the agenda, which was approved by the conference council on May 16, 2020.
Okay, as Daniel scrolls it down, the motion comes from the conference council, so it does not need a second. Is there any question or discussion about the agenda? Okay, are you ready to vote?
Five-second warning.
Okay, what is the result of the vote, Daniel? All right, we have agenda passed. Thank you. Before we go to the next item, let's stretch wherever you are. You can stand, you can stretch, you can lie down if you wish, and enjoy a short musical break to inspire us in our work. Thank you to Michael Patrick Allard, a member of Foothills Congregational Church, Los Altos, Santa Clara Association. Okay. Thank you, Michael. I now call on DCOM to move for the adoption of the standing rules.
Good morning. I am Dick Hom, member of San Francisco Chinese Congregational Church, Golden Gate Association, and a member of the annual meeting business committee. Today's special conference meeting is guided by the standing rules and by the bylaws. The 2020 standing rules was posted on the conference website. And the meeting was called by the conference council, which was also posted on the conference website. Bylaws Article 5, Meetings of the Members, Section 1, Annual Gathering and Annual Meeting, and Section 2, Special Meetings. Both followed the guidelines. So I move for the adoption of the standing rules.
The motion to adopt the standing rules comes from the Conference Council, so it does not need a second. Any discussion or questions? Time to vote.
Five seconds.
Doesn't need a second. 99% to adopt. Wonderful.
Okay, standing rules is adopted. Thank you. Thank you for voting. Okay, let's prepare for another music number by Patrick Allard.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you, Marco. The first item we're going to address is the proposed amendment to the bylaws. According to the bylaws, Article 11, Section 2, notice of the proposed amendments bylaws must be posted 60 days before the meeting. The proposed amendments being presented today was posted last March 26, 2020, and so it meets the time requirement. These amendments will be presented and voted on article by article. Thank you. I call on Richard Bram, President of the Conference Council. Richard?
Richard, you need to unmute your microphone.
I need to unmute myself before I tell you that I'm Richard Brabham, President of the Conference Council and a member of the First Congregational Church of Berkeley Bay Association. It's been 11 years since we did any work on the bylaws, and so it's time that we go through them and adopt the changes that have been worked on for 2 years. So Daniel, if we could scroll to the first change. I think there's one before that, but I'm not positive. Nope. Okay. Section 1 on membership, Section 2, the composition, the local churches, and in red is what has been sent to you as of March 26th. In the event that a local church wishes to change their association, It may do so in consultation with the association, the conference, and the neighboring association. Also in the association category, an association may ask the conference to act on its behalf for all matters including, but not limited to, ordinations, installations, and ecclesiastical councils. Associations in consultation with each other and the conference may agree to adjust their boundaries as needed.
Rich, I'm sorry, can I interrupt? There's been a question in the box that the draft sent out isn't quite the same, that there was an edit on page 1. I just want to make sure we clarify that.
I do not know what page 1 edit would be.
Provide cut central office functions.
Well, I thought that was coming before this, but somehow as we scrolled through, it didn't. Oh.
The word A
Right.
was taken out.
Okay. I see where the problem is, that the copy that I had originally, the original bylaws said provide a central office. So in moving the office, we found that we were having great difficulty finding an office space, and it came clear to us that we might not actually have 4 walls. And then as the pandemic hit, we aren't able to use the 4 walls of the office that we have. So we did insert the preposition a after provide on the last line, and inserted the word functions so that we could have an office without actually having to have 4 walls. And for some reason, this copy does not show the A and the functions being added. The A being struck and the functions being added. So it's being corrected as we speak.
Okay, thank you, Richard. This is Article 2. So your motion is to insert A after provide and insert functions after office.
No, the motion is to strike the A after provide. And just insert the word functions. So provide central office functions rather than provide a central office.
Okay, thank you. So the question before the body is take out A after provide and insert function after office. Are there any question from the body? Any question? Discussion? Okay, I see none. So yes.
Epi, there are actually several hands raised. So those of you who have raised your hands, please put your questions in the question and answer box unless you're making a motion. All right, I've got 4 people whose hands are raised. So I'm assuming that they are making a motion. So I will first call on Amy Eaton. Amy, you're muted. Okay, I believe her hand may be raised by accident because it has been raised for a while. Diane?
Just from the technical desk, for those of you who are raising your hands to make a motion, once you are called on, we do activate it so that you can unmute yourself to speak into the meeting to make your motion. Your camera won't be activated, but your microphone would be available for you. So look at the bottom of your Zoom window and make sure to unmute yourself once you've been called on as eligible to do that.
Diane Johnson.
Greetings, everyone. What I was surprised at is that there is nothing specific around social justice and affirming diversity, equity, and inclusion in the mission and purpose. So I don't know how, so is that whether I make a motion to add that, but I was surprised at that. I mean, it's inferred, but it's not explicitly identified.
Would you want to make a motion to that?
Madam Moderator, hi, as parliamentarian,
Okay.
making a motion to amend something that isn't really about what's been presented to the congregations is probably out of order. That I think that what you're raising, Diane, is important. And what I would recommend is looking at getting the conference council to make that amendment and bring it to next year's annual gathering and annual meeting, because that part, because that hasn't been shared with the congregations in the conference, amending further up in the mission, that my suspicion is that our moderator would rule that out of order.
So let me ask. So I'm a little confused because I guess I didn't know, when was there the time to put input into the articulation of the mission and purpose? And so, and if I'm hearing you correctly, you mean to tell me that it will be an entire year in that having, and especially given what is occurring right now, this week, to wait a whole year seems, I understand parliamentary procedure, but to me that seems inadequate.
Okay, let me answer that, and Richard can supplement it. When this bylaw amendment proposal was posted, there was also an informational session that was held in March 9. And
the first week of the pandemic.
May 9, yeah, May 9. So there was informational session. So there were some comments made and some were incorporated into that. Okay, the conference council serves as a board of directors of the conference, and they meet once a month, except April, August, and December.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I used to be on the council.
Okay, well, thank you. Then whatever, I thank you for bringing that up, because we are a diverse conference. Thank you for bringing it up. And your concern is taken. We need to encourage you to come and bring whatever your concerns are, okay? Are there any discussions for this? Okay.
I noticed, Madam Moderator, I notice Jake Yanlan has a hand raised, and I am going to click allow to talk.
Okay. Where are the?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Danny, that was by mistake.
Okay. Thank you. So are you ready for the question?
If I could just, there is one more question in the chat box that I just want to make sure we get addressed. The original question was about the office, and that after the pandemic going back to a physical office. Let me just make sure that I've got the original question correct. What about this, when this pandemic is over, will we want to go back to having a physical office? I said my understanding is that this offers the ability to do either, depending on circumstances, pandemic or not. And Ursula came back and said, I see, but there is a room for interpretation and it's not specific. Do we need to say it?
I feel that in providing a physical office that provides the office functions, but in case we can't provide a physical office, we are within the bylaws. And that's why the specific office was taken out, and we provide the functions. We can provide it in four walls, which we do have but can't use effectively anymore until the pandemic is over. So I think everything is covered with this.
Thank you. Mary Richardson has raised her hand.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up the fact that this is the bylaws. This is not a policy and procedure manual, and the bylaws are clarified in policy and procedure, and the place for interpreting this so there's no ambiguity would be in policy and procedure and not in the bylaws.
Thank you for that remark. Are there any more questions? Okay. So the motion, let's go back to the question for the motion is take out the A after provide and insert function after office. And this comes from the council. It does not need a second.
Delegate, there's Delegate James Ross, who's raising and unraising a hand. Jim, if you need your hand raised to make a motion, raise your hand again and we'll call on you. Otherwise, we'll assume that there's just an error.
Okay, so I don't hear anything more. So are you ready for a vote?
Yes.
Those who are in favor, put your yes, or those opposed, no, abstain.
I realize there's a vote in process, Madam Moderator, and I do have 2 more questions from people. I'll wait till the vote is completed.
Okay.
5 seconds.
The 2 questions are that, and this is from Diane Johnson, and the bylaws serve as the principal legal document that articulates mission and purpose, and if elements are missing, that will not be covered by policies and procedures. The second question is Eileen Altman. I'm confused about why we can't amend other parts of the bylaws in this meeting, as Diane suggested. I assume we're still going through the bylaws, correct?
Yes, we are just the beginning.
So that was just the first amendment that was approved. I'm sorry, Eileen is asking why, in regard to Diane's question, I believe, why can we not amend other parts, since we are gathered here to approve the revisions on the bylaws, why can we not amend other parts of the bylaws? That's the question. I believe that one might be for Jeff.
So the idea is, our bylaws say that bylaw amendments need to be pre-published and shared with the churches, shared with the conference. And so to amend part of the bylaws that has not been pre-published would be ruled out of order because it hasn't been pre-published and shared with the churches. It's a violation of our own amendments. To tweak a proposed amendment so that it is clearer, so that grammatical error is corrected, those sorts of things is permissible for the body to do today, because the section of the bylaws, the specific change has been published for the churches, and so that if they care about that section, they know they need to get their delegates present and to participate in the discussion. So that's why I'm suggesting that I think that it would be ruled out of order to propose an amendment to a different section of the bylaws or a different part of the bylaws than what has been pre-published for the congregations.
Thank you, Jeff.
Continuing on, I think the next one is Article 3, Section 2, the membership. And these changes I had read through before we had the recall that there was an earlier change that didn't show up. These came about because the Bay Association, not the Bay Association, the Mountain Valley Association found that they needed to ask the conference to act on their behalf. And the issues that came up with that, we felt needed clarifying and to be specific in the bylaws. Also, in the authorized ministers portion here, we had the supplemental appendices section, and because the UCC manual on ministry was redone and covers the things that we had built our own supplemental appendices around, we struck the supplemental appendices part and put in the current edition of the UCC manual on ministry, so that whenever something comes up, we can refer to the manual on ministry and not have to specifically change to X edition or Y edition. So the wording, the current edition, suffices there.
I do have some more questions. If I believe most of the questions are regarding the original question from Diane Johnson. So I don't know if you want me to save those till later or take them now.
Why don't we finish Richard's on Article 3?
There's one comment says the bylaws aren't in focus and it's giving them a headache. Let's see. So I don't see a question that.
There is a hand raised, Madam Moderator, if you would like to call.
What? Okay, I don't see any the Q&A. Okay.
Would you like to call on the hand raised?
Yeah, this is Carol Manahan.
Mary Susan Gast has her hand raised. I will click to allow to talk.
Okay, yes. Where is that?
Okay. Am I okay to be on here?
You're live.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Questions. Just in the context of the wider UCC bylaws, the national bylaws state that an association is made up of the local churches within that association's boundaries geographically. We know that that's not always the case, even though it says that in the bylaws, because there are non-geographic associations throughout the UCC. What I'm looking for, though, is some clarification. I'm not sure from the wording here whether a church in, it sounds to me like the church in Eureka could request to be a part of the Santa Clara Association. And it, if this amendment is being launched for the purpose that is referred to in the next paragraph, where an association may ask a conference to act on behalf of it, that's one thing, but I think it needs to be clarified, because reading it, it sounds like, okay, I don't want to be part of this association anymore. I can be part of another association, and then we need to spend time working that out. Or are we talking about some non-geographic associations, which is also a possibility? But I would appreciate just some clarifying of that paragraph about local churches.
Thank you. Would someone Would someone offer an amendment to the local churches relating to that? What, Mary Susan, you want to offer an amendment to that, Mary Susan?
We actually have an amendment that someone is proposing, and this, like you said, Epi, this might be the good time for that.
Yeah, it is a good time. Yeah, that's why if someone can offer that amendment to that relating to the local churches that Mary Susan has brought up.
Daniel, can you give Roy Mosley the ability to speak, please? Okay, Roy, if you unmute yourself, you can speak.
If you unmute yourself, Roy, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now we can, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been having computer problems. Okay, so I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared to speak to this, but I had this very same concern that Mary Susan gasped, because the way it was originally written, it would allow for forum shopping. If, for example, my church at St. John's in the Golden Gate Association, the way it was written, could just up and decide it wanted to be part of the Bay Association because I like Yvette Blonder, and you could have that kind of forum shopping. In our conference council meeting, it was clear that that was not the intent. That the intent was for there to be that there were limited situations that were geographical situations where a church would need to change its association. So the amendment that I proposed to the conference council, and we worked on the wording, and I hope that Richard can show all this. I think it was going to be presented later on in this presentation, says there are limited situations in which a local church may desire to change its association because of geographic issues. In the event that a local church wishes to change their association, it may do so in consultation with the association, the conference, and the neighboring association. There's an amendment that the conference council is bringing that on the document that I was presented is in blue, that addresses this very situation that has Mary Susan Gass concerned, because it had me concerned as well.
And for some reason, the copy with the blue changes and everything is not the one being exhibited right now. And having no control over the screen, I don't know how to bring that one up. But it specifically had the blue changes and things were in line. It also had the first A and functions part in it.
That was actually the blue changes. That was an agreement that we could not add to the document that had already been distributed to everybody, so that any changes needed to be verbally brought. Any of the clarifying amendments needed to be verbally brought, and that's why we did not display it to make it look like an assumption that these were already the ones that were sent out for approval or review.
Right. Right. So this is an amendment. The motion is to
So if we can't display it, I can read it how it's proposed to be changed in its entirety very slowly, and someone can type it, but it would seem like there might be a better technological solution to displaying what I can see on a difference.
I believe it's been typed in as you were reading it, Roy. It's in green on the screen.
Oh, and did somebody get it just as I was saying it, or did somebody compare it to the original text, or do I need to do that right now real fast?
It's already the same wording, Roy.
You were garbled, Epi.
Okay. The wordings are the same from what you were reading, Roy.
Okay, and then one more thing. I think it might be helpful to address this issue if Diane gave an example of a church needing to change its association because of geographic issues. I know you gave a great example in the past, but I just can't remember it.
So Mountain Valley Association voted a year and a half ago to turn over all of its administrative functions to the conference. Mountain Valley Association had 6 churches in it. 4 of those churches decided that they wanted to move to another association so that they could be in an association that was functioning as an association that had not turned its functions over to the conference. And so the way that was allowed, it was because of the way the United Church of Christ bylaws are set up, and because of the way our bylaws are set up, the way that was allowed was to ask the neighboring association to extend the boundaries, the geographic boundaries of their association, so that those churches then became part of that association. So this was not, they could not have chosen any association. It had to be one where the geographic boundaries could be extended to then include. And that's why 2 churches became part of Bay Association and 2 churches became part of the Sacramento Valley Association.
So thank you for all of that.
Madam Moderator and other presenters, there is a hand raised from Sophia Jackson. I don't know if it's a motion. Sophia, you can unmute yourself.
What I was going to say was perhaps it would be, we could avoid the confusion if someone would explain what happened. And Diane just did that by explaining we extended the boundaries, how we were able to extend the boundaries according to a geographic map that showed that 2 of the churches, the 2 churches that joined Bay Association, actually literally butted up against the boundary on a map where Bay would actually end. And so it made sense to extend our boundaries to include them because they're according to what a map said, as far as putting them in the Sacramento Valley conference, it wouldn't have worked for Modesto and for Ripon, according to how the boundaries of are seen and shown on certain maps. So thank you, Diane.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sophia. Are there more discussions? Any more questions on this?
Yes, there are a couple more questions. It states that the association is according to geographic boundaries, black text, before the red text. I'm not sure I understand that, but someone else might.
I believe where they're looking is under the header of associations. I'm not sure if the highlight comes across on the screen. Local churches are joined in associations according to geographic boundaries that are set by each association.
And in consultation with the conference and neighboring associations. And that's where the boundaries of the Bay Association were extended to include the churches that were part of Mountain Valley and wanted a more active association. Can we scroll down, Daniel?
Mr. Parliamentarian or Madam Moderator, do we need to vote on the amendment to the amendment?
I think we need to vote on this. If we are we ready to move, are we ready for the question for this motion, there are limited situations in which a local church may desire to change its association because of geographic issues.
According to my notes, that's the only planned amendment to the amendment.
Okay, are we ready for that question?
I'm sorry, I do have one more question that popped up here. And then, okay, the question is, due to geographic issues, doesn't describe the situation. So that is related directly to that additional amendment.
In our estimation, it did address it. So unless more compelling reasons can be put forth, I suggest we go ahead with this wording.
Roy is asking if he can speak to that.
Roy, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So we talked about how we would incorporate this issue in our bylaws. And remember, in bylaws are supposed to be flexible enough so that you can, so that you don't have to rewrite them every single time you have an issue. So what we decided was we would not give the specifics of this type of geographical gymnastics that we sometimes have to do. We would just be general and say there are times when, because of geographic issues, we have to make this accommodation and allow for that in our bylaws. So we purposely didn't want to be very, very, very specific to Diane's example, if that makes sense.
And there is another question here, due to the possibility of boundaries changing by mutual agreement.
I'm not seeing exactly. Oops. I don't know. I'm not seeing what the question is, so I can't address it. To me, this wording gives the conference and the associations the power to agree on modifications. Nothing is set and carved in stone, and there are situations where we need to adapt, and this allows for adaptation.
Okay. Unless you want to add more words to this new proposed amendment.
You're garbled again, Epi.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. Okay, any more discussions on this? The motion before you is the inclusion of there are limited situations in which a local church may desire to change its association because of geographic issues. Are you ready for the question?
Yes, please.
All right. Let's go on to vote to adopt the amendment to the amendment.
Five seconds.
Okay, motion passed. So this is the motion is passed. Richard, go on.
So An association may ask the conference to act on its behalf for all matters, including but not limited to ordinations, installations, and ecclesiastical councils. Associations in consultation with each other and the conference may agree to adjust their boundaries as needed. We already talked about that. Do we do a motion on each section or each article?
It's article.
Okay, then we need to scroll down to section 3, boundaries. And we added of the conference just to be specific as to what we were talking about. What geographic boundaries was kind of ambiguous. So we added the words of the conference to section 3 here. Scrolling down.
Sorry, we have a hand raised. Jack Dawson, if he can speak.
Just a question of confusion. Didn't we just vote on the amendment to the amendment? And now don't we need to vote on the amendment in toto?
We are not done with Article 3 yet.
So we do all of Article 3.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Okay.
Scrolling down, Daniel.
That is the end of the article.
That is the end of the article.
Okay. So section 3, the motion is to add of the conference to the word geographic boundaries.
So we have a motion to include the changes in, I can't see what article we're in, but.
Article 3, section 2.
And section 3.
Right, right. So the motion before you is adoption of Article 3 with the amendment. All right.
Yes, please.
Is that clear? Okay. Are you ready to vote?
Please.
All right. Start voting.
Five seconds.
All right, motion is passed. Thank you. All right, Richard. Next.
Scrolling.
I just want to remind everyone, I still have the questions regarding the original question from Diane Johnson.
Okay. All right.
Article 5, meetings of the members. It used to say in the spring, and we took out in the spring and put in once each year for an annual gathering meeting.
We have 2 people who would like to speak. Melinda McLean.
Okay, Melinda, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I think I'm unmuted. I hope I'm unmuted. I've
You
lost
are.
the camera, but that's okay. I want to propose an amendment to this section about meetings, which I put in the Q&A. I think we just redid our bylaws for the Good Table UCC. And one of the things we were advised by our lawyers to add to our bylaws was being able to cover exactly what's happening right now, electronic meetings, which I think we're going to have more of. And so the proposed amendment is following this. And it goes in section 5. Any meeting may be held by conference telephone or other communications equipment permitted by the law, as long as all those participating in the meeting can hear and communicate with one another. All those participating shall be deemed to be present in person at such meeting. I recognize this hasn't been published before, but I do think that it falls within the scope of what's being discussed here, and I hope you all will support this amendment.
This is in order. It's related to the bylaw of Article 5 regarding meetings.
There is a question saying, isn't once each year redundant? And yes, it is. And redundancy is sometimes clarity.
There's another hand raised that's been raised for a while for Sophia DeWitt.
Is there some way that we can, if we cannot do it this morning for parliamentary reasons, call an additional special meeting sooner than a year? Yeah.
I believe Sophia does have that question. That's one of them we're waiting on until we get through. And
Oh, okay, this is the one that she's talking.
yeah, Sophia, I think, has something else she'd like to share.
All right, Sophia.
No, that's actually, hello, everyone. Good morning. That's actually the question that I had. So if we can address that at some point before we're done here this morning. I think Diane's question is extremely important, and I don't want us to wait an entire year before we address her concerns. So I know we've taken other amendments to these bylaws that have been considered in order. So I would just encourage us to think about how we want to address what Diane is raising, because we all know we're in a crisis in this country right now.
Sophia, let me answer that. We are scheduled to meet in October 24. So that means we have June, July, August, September, October, so 5 months. So it's possible. Yeah.
For the sake of not confusing the two, because again, as I've said, I've got these 4 questions here related to that, and I don't want that topic. I want to address that topic, but we're in the middle of an amendment in this particular section. So I feel like we need to, these two need to be taken at 2 different times, and we should finish one and go with the other.
Thank you. Okay, Richard, where are we?
Melinda has posed an amendment here. Any meeting, it's been added in green on my screen at least.
So this is going to...
Jim Ross, I think, has something to say.
Jim?
Yeah, I move that we adopt this amendment.
No, Melinda moved that we adopt it. You're the second.
You're the seconder. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that this motion is before you to be included in the section 5 transaction of business after the word present. And I will read it to you again. Any meeting may be held by conference, telephone, or other communications equipment permitted by the law, as long as all members participating in the meeting can hear and communicate with one another. All participating members shall be deemed to be present in person at such meeting. So that's the motion before you. Are you ready to vote, or any more further discussions?
Let's vote, please.
Okay, vote.
Five seconds.
I'm sorry. Did you, Epi, did you want to?
Okay, so the vote, the motion is adopted. So let's go on vote on the Article 5 as amended.
If I could ask one question, which I want to make all of you aware that several authorized ministers have posted on the authorized ministers Facebook group that they've been unable to get into the meeting because of the barrier of needing to sign into a Zoom account first. Many of the authorized ministers are now watching on the conference website, which allows them to observe but not vote. I suspect that other delegates who are not authorized ministers have had the same challenge. If someone is available to problem solve about this in real time, it might assuage some frustrations. Eileen, I can tell you on my end, first of all, we do have 177 of the 200 delegates that are in attendance. So at most there are 23 people. I have been answering emails about this. Everyone except one person has now gotten in who's reached out to me directly. So if you can post on that Facebook page that if they will reach out to me, I can send them something that may resolve the issue. And they can probably hear me because they're watching on YouTube. So send me an email. I'm watching my inbox.
Send something to Jeannie Hobson, please. She's been texting me that she is having trouble.
Oh, she is not in?
No.
Oh.
Thank you, Eileen. I'm seeing this and I'll do my best to get them in.
So we need to now vote to adopt the other changes in Article 5, which include the once each year and scrolling.
Yeah, that was, the motion passed, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So let's go on to next.
You still have business related to all of the amendments to Article 5.
Right.
Okay, so you move, Richard, to adopt all of the
we have to read through the discussion and deliberation section just above Article 6.
All right.
Standing rules for meetings of the members of the conference will be proposed by the conference moderator, recommended by the conference council, and sent to all members of the conference before adoption by the registered delegates at the annual meeting. And this is a clarification of the standing rules procedures going forward. And this was in the original bylaws changes recommended. So I think we can have a motion, or the motion is in to do Article 5.
Okay, the motion is before you is to adopt Article 5 as amended.
Coming from the council, it needs no second.
Exactly. Any further questions? None. Okay, let's vote. Who are in favor? Oppose? Abstain?
Five seconds.
Okay, motion is adopted. Thank you, Richard.
Going on to Article 6, officers. Oh, I clicked the wrong, I don't know where I am. Again, provide for and maintain the conference office functions and the property of the conference. back to the same functions that we changed earlier, but it appeared in two separate instances here, so that we don't always have to have a four-walled office. And the composition of the conference council, and this is in relation to the changes if an association turns over its functions to the conference. Sometimes they don't have enough churches or enough people to serve to have two representatives on the conference council. So rather than mandating two, we changed it to up to 12 representatives, no more than two appointed by each association. In the event an association has delegated its function to the conference, the nomination process will choose no more than two members of the churches in that association to serve as representatives of the association. Remaining members of the council will be members at large. And I think we have an amendment coming to this.
Okay, I will entertain an amendment, a motion to offer an amendment to this.
It's a clarification of wording.
Whoever is signed in with the name Skyland Church has their hand raised and is now allowed to talk.
Yes, there was a previous change that was bypassed under Section 2 of Article 6 about not the length of a term or something like the annual gather following their election and may not or may serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. Some changes that were bypassed. That's Section 2, officers of the conference under Article 6. At least that's on the documents that were sent to me. You know, the officers of the conference. Section 2 of Article 6. Yeah, that was bypassed. Nobody's mentioned that.
Yes.
Oh, okay. In the scrolling, when Daniel was going by, it went by quickly. I can only operate on the screen that Daniel put up because the other one is blocked off when he goes to share screen for me. The moderator and vice moderator will serve until the close of the annual gathering, follow their election, and may serve no more than 2 consecutive terms in the same office. And this was to allow for the situation when at the last minute, the vice moderator is unable to fulfill the role, and we needed a moderator that is ready to continue moderating because of the annual gathering duties. And if this situation appears, the moderator can serve consecutive terms rather than being limited to 1. That's the reason for this. And this would come under Article 6.
Section 2.
I think, is this the only change in Article 6? If so,
yes.
Yes. Then we need to move to adopt Article 6 changes, Section 2.
Are there any questions on Section 6, Article 6? If not, are you ready to vote?
Please.
Okay. Let's do vote.
And thank you for pointing that out as we scrolled by it.
Okay, let's go back to Article 7.
still have a vote in place, Madam Moderator, 5 seconds.
Oh, I thought we did already.
It didn't pop up.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, it's adopted.
We do have, I'm not sure if this was, there's a comment on here. The irony implied is that we didn't have the authorization to do this. I'm not sure what that's referring to.
Which one?
I'm not sure what that's referring to. If the person who is named anonymous attendee would like to speak to this, can you please raise your hand? Eric Hartz is raising his hand.
I was just amused that we were using the Zoom meeting to authorize ourselves to allow Zoom meetings to be acceptable.
If I can answer that and would ask the parliamentarian to back me up on this. I was just in a meeting where with other conference ministers where the General Counsel for the United Church of Christ explained that parliamentary Robert's Rules of Order does not allow for online meetings, and it has to be explicitly put in the bylaws. So if the bylaws contain a stipulation that Robert's rules will be followed, then you cannot have online meetings. But with the absence of Robert's rules being in your bylaws, which it's not in ours, and without the bylaws saying you cannot have online meetings, it's assumed you can. The decision to add this amendment or to recommend it was from someone who felt it was really important to explicitly say it's okay. But we have verified that, as far as I know, that we were not out of order by doing this online meeting. And I would invite our parliamentarian to respond if that's his understanding.
We had a lawyer review this for Niles Discovery Church, which also does not list Robert's rules. In fact, it explicitly says we adopt our own rules rather than Robert's rules for Niles Discovery Church's bylaws. And reviewed it as to whether or not we could have our annual meeting online. And his opinion, looking at California code, was that if our bylaws did not explicitly mention it, then we were allowed to do it. Adding this amendment just makes it totally clear that we are saying we can do it. So I didn't think it was, personally, I didn't think it was particularly necessary, but hey, as Richard said earlier, sometimes redundancy is clarity. So.
And we did have, I think it's too late for this. I did not see it because it got lost in some of the comments wanting to go back to that original article. Polly Moore has put in quotes, such a meeting at the end of the green edition, which was in the previous article. Polly, do you need to say more about that? If so, please raise your hand. Polly has raised her hand.
No, it was just a grammatical point. The phrase "at such a meeting" seemed like what you wanted there, but it's certainly understandable without it. I wouldn't recommend we go back and change the vote.
That's
all.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, I missed that.
Okay, thanks. All right. Let's go back.
Go back to our old friend here, explaining the association delegates so that the 22 voting members of the council can still happen if an association who has turned over its function doesn't have 2 representatives, the vacated seat becomes an at-large on the conference council, and that allows to maintain the 22 voting members.
So Richard, scrolling back, Daniel, can you scroll back to that? I had recommended at some point that we add the words of the conference after nominations process.
Yes, and that is a motion that we're waiting to have that word added for clarity. Is that a motion?
Okay,
Well,
is that, are you,
Yeah, as parliamentarian, I don't think he can, but
yeah.
are you proposing that motion, Richard, to add conference after the, before the nomination word?
yes.
Okay.
Jim
So
Ross raised his hand. Jim Ross had raised his hand.
all right, Jim.
You need to unmute yourself, Jim.
Does that need a second?
Yes, please.
I second that motion.
Okay, so the motion is to insert the word conference before the nomination process. Right? There.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Okay,
that's correct.
thank you. Are there further discussions on this? Are we ready to vote for okay, hold on.
We have to vote on the amendment
Yeah,
to this,
right.
and then
Are you ready to vote for the new insertion of the word conference before nominations?
yes, please.
All right, let's vote. Those who are in favor, oppose, abstain.
Five seconds.
Thank you.
Motion passed. Let's go back to the Article 7 motion. Are there further discussions, questions as amended? I hear none, so let's vote.
Five seconds.
Passed, motion passed, thank you. All right, Richard.
Scrolling.
Article 9.
This deals with absolutes and reality. And the bylaws used to say at least 20% of the membership of the committee be reserved for persons who are 30 years of age or younger when affirmed. If fewer than 20% of the members meet this requirement, the Committee for Recruitment of Conference Leaders will recruit such members. And the reality was we found it almost impossible to meet this requirement for these 20%. So relaxing the bylaws a little bit and putting it, if possible, keeping that goal ahead of us and striving for it, but not mandating it. At least 20% of the membership of a committee should be reserved for persons who are 30 years of age or younger when affirmed. If fewer than 20% of the members meet this requirement, the Committee for Recruitment of Conference Leaders will attempt to recruit such members. Let's see. Okay, and then Section 3, the Committee on Ministry. The organization and work of the committee described in the current edition of the manual on UCC Manual on Ministry. Again, referring back to the same thing that we had earlier. Members of the Committee on Ministry are appointed, and then the Committee on Ministry members serve a term of 3 years with terms beginning each year at the conclusion of the annual gathering. A Committee on Ministry member may serve 2 complete consecutive terms. One who has served more than half of a term is considered to have served a complete term. And then term limits. After a Committee on Ministry member has served the maximum term, at least 1 year must elapse before that individual may serve again on the Committee on Ministry. Conference Council must approve any exceptions. And I would like to propose an amendment to this and insert the word may serve again on the same Committee on Ministry.
I have a question. What efforts are employed to meet this previous requirement for youth participation on council? How are these efforts and results evaluated?
Conference Council always has this goal ahead of us. We are constantly striving to meet that goal, and if there isn't that composition of the committee, we keep our eyes and ears out. The Committee on Conference Leadership Recruitment is looking and asking, and we talk to churches, we talk to people, we put articles in the newsletter, everything possible to achieve these goals.
Okay, thank you. This is Article 9. Are there questions? Are there amendments to be done?
There's one question. Don't you mean the same section of the Committee on Ministry?
Could that person potentially be the second for the motion that Richard made?
That's Carol Berger.
Yes, I will entertain that same section on section of the Committee on Ministry.
Can we let Carol speak to make that second if she'd like to?
Carol?
Yep.
Cannot hear her.
Otherwise, folks can't move between sections of the Committee on Ministry.
Carol?
We cannot hear her.
I'm unmuted.
It's very quiet. Can you speak louder?
Yes. That was my intention, was to make sure that people move between sections of the Committee on Ministry. So that's second.
Can anybody hear exactly what she's saying?
No, I didn't hear her. It's hard for me to hear.
That was her intention, that it be the same section. Carol, will you be the second on that motion?
Can she type in her yes?
She's shouting yes, so that's a yes.
Shouting yes.
Okay, well, I think that is it's moved and seconded to insert the words same section and the Committee on Ministry, right?
Yes,
that's what it is. Okay, so
We need a vote on
Are
that.
you ready to vote to adopt the amendment? Okay.
Yes. Scrolling, well,
There's a vote in process.
right.
Not yet.
5 seconds.
Scrolling right along.
All right.
Moderator, want to announce the vote?
97%. We passed. So let's go and vote for Article 9.
Well, there's more.
Wait.
Under section 4 of Article 9,
Okay.
Committee for Conference Leadership Recruitment should be comprised of at least 8 individuals. And if possible, there should be at least 1 member of this committee from each association. This again is putting into place reality rather than absoluteness. Is that it? Okay, that's the end of Article 9. So
Okay. The motion is to adopt Article 9 as amended. All right. Any further?
There's a raised hand, Jim Ross.
Jim?
I second the motion, the motion.
No, you don't need to second because it has come from the council. Are we ready to vote?
please.
All right, let's vote, please.
It's amazing how long 30 seconds is.
5 seconds.
All right, we have amended our bylaws.
Was that the last change? Article?
Yes, I believe so.
I have no more in my notes on the script, Madam Moderator.
That's it. Hello?
I still have all the questions going back to that first question, so I'd like to read that.
Okay.
There's actually a hand raised from Skyland Church. It may be a motion. Skyland Church is allowed to speak.
Okay.
Article 10, I don't think we voted on that change yet. My copy has a deletion of the word save a dot.
That is, yes. Thank you for pointing that out. That is simply an error that came in when the former bylaws were converted to this format and was just accidental in the tracks changes. There was no language save a doc in the bylaws.
Thank you, Daniel.
So I will read, is it okay for me to read through these questions?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Is it possible to add business at the end of the meeting that addresses Diane Johnson's concern that proposes her bylaw amendment to go to council? Also possible for another type of agreement other than a bylaw change?
Okay, first of all, we are supposed to be finished at 12. Unless we extend the meeting, it's 11:52. It's up to the body if you want to extend it. That is my question. It is an important one.
Jack Dawson, Kay Harrison, Stan Ali have their hands raised. Jack Dawson.
Hi, Jack.
I just was going to move that we extend the length of the meeting. Is that what you need?
You need to state a time, and we have to put a vote.
So it looks to me like we've got at least another 30 minutes or more.
It's 11:53 on my watch. So.
Okay, let's do this. Extend till 1 if needed.
Okay, I need a 2/3 vote of this, so those who are.
Madam Moderator, it would need
Yes.
a second, and your tech person needs a moment to type in the motion.
Okay.
And there are also additional hands raised. So
Thank you.
I would request your guidance.
Kay Harris.
I second it. Kay Harris.
Hi, Kay.
Hi, Abby. Did you hear
Church and
that?
association, please.
I am Kay Harris, Golden Gate Association, Congregational Church of San Mateo.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Stan Ali.
Yes, I wanted to be a second to extend the time to 1 o'clock because I think it's an important issue to be discussed.
Okay.
We'll wait for Daniel.
Give your tech person 1 moment to type that in.
Okay.
As he's typing that in, I will say that several people have agreed and have made a motion. A couple of people have said they cannot stay. And one of those who will be leaving at noon is Diane Johnson. And then I believe there was, this goes back to the bylaws. I don't know if I missed this, but Kay Harris says on page 12, more change.
For the motion that's on the floor, Madam Moderator, the poll is ready if you'd like to call for it.
Okay, the motion is to extend the meeting until 1 o'clock. Those who are in favor.
Five seconds.
I believe the motion passed.
Madam Moderator, I believe you called for a 2/3 motion.
Yes, I did. Can you calculate it? Can you calculate it for me? How many?
The percentage of yes is 94 votes in favor, which is 62% of those voting. The no is 40, which is 26% of those voting. Abstains are 18 and 12% of those voting.
So the motion does not pass.
Okay.
The abstentions don't count in the total vote.
They don't count, yeah. Do we need to extend it to another time?
Actually,
one moment, I'll do a calculate. I have to do a raw calculation because of the abstentions.
Yeah, abstentions are not counted, yeah.
So with abstentions removed, that means total votes cast of 94 plus 40. Yes and no is 134 eligible votes cast. 94 votes in favor divided by 134 would result in a percentage of 70%, which is above the 2/3 threshold.
so we do extend. Thank you.
All right. So we are done with the bylaw for now. Let's go on
Well,
to.
let's wait just a moment. someone said there was something on page 12, which the document has disappeared.
He said that has taken care of itself. That's been handled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was sort of typo. I would like us to
Go
I
ahead.
would like us to continue with the agenda at this time.
Happy? We
Yeah.
have all these questions we've not addressed. I really think it's important that we're extending the meeting so we can address them. I really feel like we need to address them.
Okay. Which one?
So the first one I already read, and now I can't find it. Carol Manahan was asking if we could handle, is it possible to add business at the end of the meeting that addresses Diane Johnson's concern that proposes her bylaw amendment to go to council? Also possible for another type of agreement other than a bylaw change? Charles Weidman said, if Diane's intent is to make a statement about social justice in light of recent events, I believe that could be done as a separate motion from the group after the bylaws topic for this meeting is complete. This would not be a change to the bylaws, but would need to be addressed through the process defined in the bylaws. Sophia DeWitt has said, is there some way we can, if we cannot do it this morning for parliamentary reasons, call an additional special meeting sooner rather than a year from now to address Diane's concern? My heart is hurting too. Charles Weidman, to Diane's concern, I believe this group could make a separate social justice statement in light of current events separate from the bylaws. Leslie Taylor, if we can add Melinda's amendment, why can't we deal with Diane Johnson's amendment? And Diane Johnson for clarification, Roy Mosley, the difference between Diane's amendment and the others is that we gave notice to the conference that we would be amending certain sections. So amendments from the floor on those areas are in order. We never gave notice that we would be amending the section that Diane would like to amend. Roy Mosley, I agree. And the bottom line is you have a parliamentarian, so his ruling is final. Diane Johnson was saying that she needs to leave the meeting in a few minutes, so don't know what to do about the outstanding question about adding diversity, equity, and inclusion to the mission statement. I'm trusting in the process. Thank you for your consideration. And then another comment, the mission statement, given the world that we live in, fails ridiculously short and needs to be addressed. Mission statements are foundational covenants that ground organizations in belief and purpose. To not have a statement affirming anti-racism and in support of LGBTQ people, gender equality, eliminating health disparities, etc., is unacceptable. But congregations should be able to weigh in on the writing, shaping of the mission, and be able to engage. I support a public statement signed by the authorized ministers in the short term and a special meeting in the midterm. Can we get an update? Oh, sorry, if we still have enough delegates to continue. Yes, we still have enough delegates to continue. I can answer that. Victor Floyd, I'm impressed at how this meeting has been conducted on Zoom and will be using this meeting as a model for my ministry setting. Sorry, we're getting into some other things. Agree to a separate social justice statement and or council to deal with this. So what I'm hearing from this is, from what I've read in these, is more of a question of, rather than necessarily addressing the bylaws right now, there are some immediate things that they would like to see happen. And if we can agree on what those will be, both a statement and possibly a committee to restructure our mission statement for the conference, is how I would summarize that. And if anyone feels I've not done that well, please add an additional comment in the box.
Thank you, Diane. Anybody want to add to that?
There's a hand raised from Barry Kammer.
Good afternoon. I've been listening closely to the entire proceedings and have kept Diane's question and concerns in mind. I think I would ask if it's possible. I know we cannot do a bylaws amendment that has not been pre-published. However, could the annual meeting make a recommendation to all our churches, do two things: make a recommendation to all our churches to consider adding a specific ministry to the marginalized in our society, which is a pretty good general phrase, and then at the same time set up a committee to review our mission statement as a conference. That's all I have.
We seem to have lost Epi.
I was going to say, in terms of this, we're in a little bit of a technical glitch right now. We seem to have lost Epi. I am going to bring our vice moderator, Melissa Tumenang, in the meantime.
While he's bringing Melissa in, a couple more comments. Melissa, thank you for picking up the scribe work for our scribe who needs to leave at noon. And then Diane Johnson said, would be willing to contribute to whatever I can do to participate in helping draft a social justice DEI statement. Got to run. Let me know if there's a decision to do that, and her email address.
Our vice moderator is here.
And then some more comments as Melissa's getting settled in. I think Diane's recommendation of writing a social justice statement and create committee to revise mission statement and purpose with input from congregations is a good way to move forward immediately, rather than trying to create wording to revise bylaws today. Janice Hill, could we have a pastoral letter to send from our conference? Roy Mosley, I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the conference council take up the issue of Diane's amendment at its next meeting and consider bringing a bylaws amendment at our October conference meeting or other action that addresses her concern.
If the moderator hears that motion, we can call for a second. If any of the people who have their hand raised would give that second, I would defer to the moderator.
Yes, we'll accept that motion.
Jim Ross has his hand raised, and I'm have activated.
I second the motion, but I had a question for the parliamentarian. Is there any time limit on how often we can revise our bylaws?
No.
No. So we could possibly have a special committee right away, and as soon as we get whatever we need drafted for our mission statement, couldn't we call another special meeting?
Yeah, it just needs to be issued to the congregations and authorized ministers of the conference in a timely manner, and you need to call the meeting sufficiently after the issuing of the proposal, so the time for folk to review it.
So to answer one of the questions that has not been answered yet, it seems to me we could call another special meeting to deal with the issue in about a month. That would be too soon because our bylaws require more notice and we wouldn't have anything ready yet. But I get the point.
Could someone reword the motion that's on the floor that has been moved and seconded so I can prepare that for the electronic vote?
Daniel, are you unable to capture it from the Q&A box?
Yeah, that's in a different screen and gets covered.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the conference council take up the issue of Diane's amendment at its next meeting and consider bringing a bylaws amendment at our October conference meeting or other action that addresses her concern. Laura Rose would like to speak. Go ahead, Laura, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Laura Rose from Alameda. My question about the motion is, where does the mission statement piece play into that? Because to me, that's, is the motion saying that Diane's motion is saying that the conference committee would discuss the mission statement and then that mission statement would be put into the bylaws? I'm unclear. To me, the piece of the mission statement and the social justice statement is the priority. And then at some point that can go into the bylaws. So I would want the mission statement or social justice statement wording in the motion.
So, Laura, the question or the motion talks about, yeah, I've lost it here.
The motion is
the amendment to Article 2 is essentially the mission and purpose of the conference. And so looking at Article 2 of the bylaws, if this motion is adopted by the folk present, the conference council will take up the issue of looking at Article 2 of the bylaws and seeing how they can be amended to address the concerns that Diane raised. And any other action that the council feels is appropriate.
So I guess my question is, by making it a bylaws issue, will it slow this down? That's, I guess, sort of the ultimate question is, if we make an emission statement question, will that free it up so that it can be adopted quicker? Or is that not an issue?
To read some more comments from the box that may also partly address that is, first of all, the motion is not for a special meeting. It is to create a bylaws amendment that would be brought in October, and a request that we stop calling it Diane's concerns. It's a concern for all of us. Let's name it. And then also, again, those two pieces of social justice mission statement and a pastoral letter or social justice statement from the conference as two other pieces of it that I see those as being separate.
Okay.
Sorry, there's some more. The concern is adding the original question was in the bylaws to add diversity, equity, and inclusion to the mission statement. That was the original item that Diane raised, and many other people since then have actually talked about rewriting the mission statement. Also, there's an opportunity to take other action in addition to changing the bylaws. And then Melinda McLean, our conference minister, is not prohibited from making social justice statements even while we work to strengthen the bylaws. And Catherine Schreiber, I support enhancing bylaws to address justice concerns. I also support immediate action as a body to address the current racialized violence. Sorry if I missed an earlier reply.
Reminder that there is a motion on the floor, and the motion as worded, which does reference the voting member, is what is in place. A friendly amendment would be needed. Liz Armstrong has her hand raised.
Yeah, sorry, I think my dog is barking. I'm just going to speak. Quiet. I'm just going to speak to the motion. I'd like to support it because I think it gives us as a council the direction and the authority to go both ways, to extend, to make a separate mission statement sooner than later, to work on a possible bylaws change in addition to that section. Or other action that we might take. So I fully support the motion because it gets us moving, and I think we all understand the urgency of it, and I'm grateful for the subject coming up, but I support the motion. So I'm just speaking in support of the motion. That's it.
Someone is asking that the motion be reread. And as he accepts the friendly amendment.
The motion as prepared right now says to recommend the conference council take up Diane's issue at its next meeting and consider bringing a bylaws amendment at our October meeting or another action that addresses her concern. If someone would like to read in a friendly amendment to that, I can update it and read it out again.
Richard has, Richard, Daniel, can you let Richard talk? He would like to make a motion or amend an amendment, a motion to amend.
I move that we amend a friendly amendment to remove Diane's name from that motion.
As written, move to recommend the conference council take up the issue at its next meeting and consider bringing a bylaws amendment at our October meeting or another action that addresses the concern.
Richard, or Roy says that he accepts that friendly amendment, and Stan Ali would like to talk. And if I could ask that anyone who wants to make a motion, accept a friendly motion, or make anything that's related to motions and voting, that you actually ask to speak and not put it in the question and answer box, because some things will get missed if that happens.
Stan Ali can unmute.
Okay, I support the motion. I just wanted to say that. Sorry.
Carol?
Carol Stivers, you can unmute.
So Daniel, when you change the motion, now there's no wording in that motion as to what it is about. So, we took out Diane's issue, and I agree with that, but we need to say what we are going to insert wording about.
Carol Manahan has recommended that we remove Diane's name and add diversity, equity, and inclusion for the mission, to the mission statement, to address that. And Michael Dack says the motion has to name the answer, and Casey Alexander would like to speak.
I was just going to add could we specify the diversity, equity, and inclusion as the issue? So that's been covered. Thank you.
And Sophia DeWitt is asking if we can see the motion on the screen. And Sophia, would you also like to speak?
Daniel, can you share your screen with us so we can see the motion as currently drafted?
Yes, I just have to put it in. There's two different programs that are dealing with this, and I've been working within the voting program, so hold on.
And in that process, Roy Mosley would like to speak.
Actually, you all covered it. If we took out Diane's name, we should substitute in what the issue is. And I just used Diane's issue as shorthand, right? So you covered it. Thanks.
Casey, would you like to make that friendly amendment? If so, please raise your hand. Oh, it's already in there. Never mind. Epi? Roy is saying it should read to take up. The word to is misplaced.
Carol Stivers.
Oh, hi. I'm speaking on behalf of Alan, who's sitting here next to me. And he wants to, you talked about inclusion in the mission statement as opposed to the bylaws, I guess?
Mission statement in the bylaws.
In the bylaws. Do we need to be specific to that?
Kara Manahan is suggesting that the word add be adding. And then Kara, what I hear you saying is adding diversity, equity, and inclusion to the mission statement in the bylaws.
Yes.
There are a number of hands raised.
Sorry, Roy?
I'm good, thanks. You guys fixed everything before I could even type it. Thanks.
All right, Patricia?
Grammatically, the statement should say to recommend that the conference council take up. So insert that, remove to. Thank you. Sorry, English major here.
Janice Hill.
I guess I just don't understand what the word take up means. Could that be eliminated to recommend that the conference council add diversity instead of take up? I don't know what take up means.
The original mover, Roy Mosley.
Take up means to consider. I think that we want to empower the conference council to consider the issues of diversity and inclusion in the mission statement, either by recommending bylaw changes or considering other actions. So it's an empowering thing that the conference council undertake an action or a period of discernment. That's what that means.
So could you say, instead of take up, consider from, is that what I hear you say?
I would sure consider is fine, but you guys continue to wordsmith it.
Shannon Kershaw?
Yes, hello. I just wanted to add, I'm in disagreement with the term consider, because I think that we as the council and churches in general, we're always considering. It does not demand action, whereas taking up is making a promise that we will put the effort forth in adding diversity, equity, and inclusion to the mission statement, as opposed to the suggestion that we might ponder it.
Janice Hill?
Perhaps it's a colloquialism that I'm not familiar with, but would it be stronger if we said to recommend that the conference council add diversity, equity, and I cannot see the rest of that. Instead of consider, just take the word consider out and put add.
Can I just make a statement that conference council has no authority to add anything to the bylaws. All that conference council can do is consider presenting or proposing to the annual meeting such changes. They can take other actions, which is what Roy was trying to say. We've talked about a social justice statement. We've talked about a pastoral statement. We've talked about many other things. So, you know, conference council can work on all those things, but conference council in itself cannot add words to the bylaws.
My motion's intent is not to tell the conference council to do A, B, or C. It's to tell it that we wanted to consider adding diversity, equity, and inclusion in the mission statement of the bylaws, or take another appropriate action. It's telling the conference council that we don't want to leave this issue that Diane brought up, this issue of diversity, equity, inclusion, on the cutting room table because of a technicality. I'm not trying to direct the conference council to do anything specific. I trust the conference council when we tell it to take it up and consider it and and consider appropriate actions, which might be bylaws changes, and they might be a letter. I trust them to empower them to do it. So my motion is a general empowerment so that we know that we're not leaving it on the cutting room floors. I'm not trying to direct the conference council to specifically make bylaw changes or to specifically do anything. I'm leaving it up to their collective discernment, which is where I think it belongs now that the issue has been raised. So if we're going to change it to direct them to do specific things, then that's not the motion that I'm trying to make. I hope that is clear.
It looks like there's different opinions here in using the word consider. I like the word empower, but it's up to the body if you want to change that.
One comment, add is a stronger statement. Quibbling over grammar is diminishing the need. Possibly change considered to address. I think, yeah, those are the two additional comments here. Sorry, there's one more. And someone is saying that they are ready to vote. We have two people raising their hands, Roy Mosley and Casey Alexander.
Okay.
I am fine with changing it to address. I think we should really call the question because we have addressed the issue that was raised at the beginning of the hour, and I think we need to move on. We need to vote and move on.
Okay, the question has been moved already, right, Roy? So are we leaving address or consider in the word?
Roy is fine with the word address.
Address. Are you guys okay with that one? Okay.
It's a friendly amendment. Casey Alexander does have her hand up.
Okay.
Casey can speak.
Thank you. Is there any, I agree we should go ahead and, move on. Would it be worth saying to recommend that the conference address adding diversity, equity, and inclusion, to take it away from, giving it to council, obviously. So we all own it and we all need to take action.
I think we need to give it to somebody, and the conference council is the body that makes the most sense. If you just say the conference, where is the conference? Then you have to convene a body to address it and do all that, and it enters into oblivion. I think you need to assign it to a specific group, and the conference council makes the best sense to me since they act as the annual gathering in between annual gathering meetings.
Okay.
There's hand raised, Charles Weideman.
Now, I was about to make the same comment that it needs to go to a specific group to take some action. So I'm just reiterating what was just said.
There's a hand raised for Jim Ross.
I call for the vote.
Okay. The question before you is to vote now. So the motion.
What? 1 second.
Yeah. Roy.
Next time, we're just gonna have to make sure we have some traveling music for Daniel as he does all this typing.
So just as a quick little, okay, so we just ran into something unique. So we actually have a character spacing limit in our voting function. So I am only able to go up through or another action. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the screen, I'm going to reactivate the screen share to show the full full text, but your voting poll will sort of have an abrupt stop. But note that what is on the screen in the screen share will be what I give to the scribe. Five seconds.
All right. The motion is passed. Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. Do we bring some statement, public statement in what is related to what's going on with our country? Do we need to do that, or we need to get a committee to do it?
I believe that was ended up all being encompassed in, I believe, unless if I'm wrong, tell me, but I believe it was all encompassed in the last motion to ask conference council to consider all of these and moving forward with.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I didn't hear that because I really apologize for. Okay. The second item is the election of the slate of the officers and leaders, and I call on Theron Jones. He's the Vice President of the Conference Council and Chair of the Leadership Recruitment Conference Committee. Theron.
Sorry, that's my fault. I didn't know both of them had. Oh, here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Theron Jones, Chairman of the Leadership Recruitment Committee, member of Pilgrim Community Church, United Church of Christ, San Francisco, part of the Golden Gate Association. I would like to thank Jeannie Hobson for her hard work in putting this slate in place, and Diane Weibel, our conference minister, as well. The Leadership Recruitment Committee has been hard at work recruiting folks to make sure the group of people represented are rich diversity, clergy, and lay, gifted with talents, abilities, and skill to assist, support, and lead the ministry of our conference. We're looking for people who are good listeners and prospective presence in their interaction with people and good at keeping things in confidence. I'm sincerely grateful to some individual church leaders and staff for their heightened efforts who have provided names for us to consider. The work is not easy to get folks committed to the various positions. There are still slots that the committee has not filled, and the committee is fully dedicated and intentionally committed to ensure we achieve the diversity goals of the conference. To those who respond to the call, thank you. Madam Moderator, I submit this nominated slate of officers and leaders.
May I just ask one question? I believe there's one name that still needs to be added to COM A, which is Laura Rose. I do not see her name on there, and I apologize, Laura, that your name was not put on there.
What class is she?
She could be added to the class of 2022 or the class of 2021.
Jeannie Hobson was raising her hand.
Jeannie.
Hi, this is Jeannie.
Hi, Jeannie.
I put her on my slate, but I didn't get it to Daniel. So I have her on the class of 2022.
Okay, wonderful. Well,
With that, will we have to take a amendment on that, Diane?
No.
No.
Parliamentarian's shaking his head.
No.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Theron. Thank you for your report, and it's received very well. As you have seen the slate, there's still opening slots. So please, 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 if you're inclined to share your God-given talents and listen to God's call. God is calling us. Okay. So please approach Jeannie Hobson and the rest of the nominating or recruiting leadership committee. Please do. And thank you for all that have committed themselves to be part of this conference in terms of leadership.
Uppy, can we take a vote on the slate?
Yeah, yeah. Let's vote.
Five seconds.
Okay, 100%. Thank you, folks. I'd like to call on Vladimir, President of Filipino American Fremont Bay Association, to give us something, reflection, and a song.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you this short meditation from the time of Noah to the time of Abraham, from Moses to Isaiah and Jeremiah and the rest of the prophets. God has been calling people not because of their extraordinary strength or capabilities, but simply because God saw in them the potentials to lead, the willingness to change course, and the availability to take on many possibilities. From the disciples to Paul, to the disciples of the present day, God continues to call, challenging people to take the task of teaching, preaching, nurturing, and leading. Indeed, God is into the business of calling. Are we, the people, engaged in the business of responding, saying yes to God's call? I would like to believe yes. Tell my people I love them. Tell my people that I care. When they feel far away from me, tell my people I am there. It was Moses who said, I have never been a good speaker. I wasn't one before you spoke to me, and I'm not one now. sounding almost the same, Jeremiah responded to God saying, I'm not a good speaker, Lord, and I'm too young. And then there was Isaiah, recognizing his unworthiness and sinfulness, cried out to the Lord, I am doomed. I am sinful. And yet, in the end, he responded to God saying, okay, I'll go. Send me. Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. 10 days ago, when I started my preparation for this meditation, without being intentional about it, I was able to compose a poem. The title is Glory is All Yours, and I would like to share it with you. It says, there's a need, God is calling. The need is overwhelming. God said, you are not alone. I responded, yes, I trust your intention. My people are in dire need. God told me to lead. I said, I'm not capable. God insisted, but you're available. I'm here for you. I will enable. So tasks are set, I now embrace, not with power, trusting God's grace. I act with the right reason. My attitude, one with my action. In this whole thing, I ask God for destination. Instead, God offered me direction. Worry not where you're headed. I'm here, just follow my lead. Then I ask God more about this cause. I wonder about the cost. God said, just remember my purpose. In humility, I responded, okay, glory is all yours. Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. In one occasion, Jesus told his disciples, the kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors. But you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. Let it be. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. As we come to the end of today's meeting, we pause now to recognize and affirm the ministry of those committed folks that you and I have elected to the respective offices, positions to lead us. Before you, Melissa, our new moderator, hey, Vice Moderator Reagan Baker, council members, new committee members, various, and along with the continuing members and those who have completed their term of service. Thank you for your service. Godspeed. I'd like to call on our conference minister, Diane, to offer prayer for our officers and everybody.
Thank you. Before I offer that prayer, Melinda just posted, I wish we had reaction buttons so we could applaud. Yes, let's all applaud everyone who's willing to serve. We are very grateful. And I also want to just take a moment, maybe a personal privilege, and to say that many of the issues that were raised here about words that are not in our bylaws and statements that we need to make, the leaders of this conference have committed to doing many, many things that would help us in the culture of our conference to be a conference that is ready and able and equipped and empowered to speak out on issues of racial justice, of injustice of all kinds, of creation justice. And we have been doing a lot of work in small groups. We have a website created, Let's Talk, trying to get a conversation going to look at COVID-19 and where things are going with, what this opportunity affords us to really look at how we can be the church in the places we need to be the church. And so there's been some amazing work that's happening. And, and we're posting things in the Authorized Ministers Facebook page that are inviting all of us in our churches to participate, such as in the event that's happening tomorrow, which is a very powerful event. And if you want to email me about it, I can get that to you. But it's a Requiem for Ahmad Aubry, and who was one of the gentlemen who was killed last week, who was murdered last week. And the work that we need to do and the call to action is, yes, the statements are important, the pastoral letters are important, and the work that we do within ourselves and the changes that we need to make in ourselves and in our communities is really, really important. So I'd like to just take one more minute and invite our Justice and Witness Team Chair, Lacey Hunter, to speak just a moment about a lot of the things Justice and Witness is doing, and also some of the preparation we have for the resolutions coming before our conference at our October meeting.
Thank you, Diane. I just wanted to look ahead a little bit because I think it is right in line with the call that Diane Johnson offered us this morning, that at last year's annual gathering, we took on the conviction to become an anti-racist conference. And that was some of the work that Justice and Witness, the key work that Justice and Witness has picked up. And in the conversations with communities about that, one of the most important things I think that we learned was that folks are eager to not receive just a blanket resolution, but are calling our conference to create concrete actions that change the culture of white supremacy within our leadership, within our communities, within all of our ministry programs. And so the resolutions that we are working on now are seeking to do that, and to really to give us, from within our studies that happen in our churches to the way that our entire structure is set up, to really begin addressing that ongoing systemic work within ourselves and within our institution. So I hope that everybody will participate actively in that, ask the questions, join the committees, And also when you receive those invitations to come to solidarity actions, like put the guns down, that we start showing up in full force, because this is what our communities are asking of us, and this is what God is calling us to. Thank you.
Thank you, Lacey. And now I'd like to offer a word of prayer for our meeting today, for the leaders who have said yes to serving in conference setting in this coming year, and also for the work that lies ahead. Let us pray. Eternal God, you have gathered us together today. You have given us the space to hear one another and to be present with one another, to create and work on those foundational documents that guide our work as a conference. We ask, God, that you continue to call us to new places, to challenging places, to uncomfortable places, as we seek to be your people, as we seek to respond to injustice in the world, as we seek to be a voice for the voiceless, to be a place of shelter for those who have no shelter, to be a place of comfort and challenge in the places that need it the most. God, we thank you for the leaders today who have agreed, who have said yes to serving in various roles in our conference. And we ask that you be with them and guide their work and empower them in the ministry that lies before us. And God, let us always remember that our conference is all of our churches together, all of our members together, and there is so much that we can do when we unite. This time of COVID has been a difficult one, and there have been some blessings that have come out of it. There are new ways that we have learned to be in community and covenant with one another. There are new ways that we have learned to worship and to sing and to cry and to support one another. And if we had not had the opportunity to take this pause, we may have missed those. Even as we look and see how much devastation, how much pain, how much death that this pandemic has created. And we continue to seek those ways to lift up those who have been on the front lines of this, putting their life in danger every day in order to provide us with the food and the supplies that we need, the medical care, the deliveries. God, we know that you are present with us in so many ways, and we are so grateful for that. So as we celebrate those who have said yes to serving in conference positions, we also celebrate each person in each one of our churches that has said yes to answering your call and serving in the ways that you need us to be present. Be with us, God, and be with us in the time between now and our next gathering as we work on how we act and function and live out your call as the conference, as the churches in Northern California and Northern Nevada. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Beautiful prayer. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, there is a hand raised from AC Poon.
Amen. Amen. Everybody was saying amen.
The name as listed here is AC Poon. You can unmute yourself and speak. If the hand raise was accidental, just let us know. All right, actually, they lowered their hand, so there we go.
None? No? Oh, okay. Well, it's that time, Melissa. Melissa, my cousin, my pinsan, it's not really a coincidence that our paths had crossed. I truly believe God has a mission. I have come to know you for the past 2 years. We have worked together, and you have demonstrated your gift of gentle yet assertive, persuasive, eloquent leadership. And you have supported me and assisted me as ably and serve well. And I have witnessed really your compassion, your passion, faithfulness, and love. And I am assured that we will be safe in your capable hands. And now with confidence, best wishes, and prayers, I hand you, you don't see? Okay, hold on.
I see you, Effie.
I hand you this gavel, a symbol of leadership, as you assume your role as moderator to lead this conference. God bless.
I
And
receive
here's
it.
your gavel.
Thank you, Effie. Got it. Thank you, Epi, for your kind words and guidance. My heart is touched. I accept the symbol of leadership. I devoutly hope that I will justify the confidence that all of you have bestowed upon me. I understand and take seriously the duties and responsibilities of the office to which I've been elected. And I enter these duties with a sense of humility. The support from all of you has been inspiring and refreshing, and so I'm pleased and grateful for it. And my cup of happiness overflows. In this responsibility, I commit to love each of you. I commit, as was stated earlier by Melinda, I believe in her song, I commit to more of you, O Christ, and less of me. I also commit to love justice, to do mercy, and walk humbly with God. So help me, God. So God willing, we will meet. God willing, we will meet together face to face at the annual gathering on October 24. There are 4 proposed solutions submitted to date, and I thank Reverend Lacey Hunter and the Justice and Witness Committee. These 4 proposals we have received, and we will look at them and discuss them during October 24. Those 4 proposals include, first one, anti-racism and racial justice training for authorized ministers. The second, taking action towards reconciling a colonizing past. The third, anti-racism and racial justice training for local churches. And the fourth, decolonizing conference camp programs. They are all, as Lacey mentioned, action-oriented. So may God keep, oh, I'm sorry. The second thing we'll discuss there on the agenda is the budget in October. May God keep each of us safe under her protection until we meet again, hopefully in person. The meeting will be adjourned after the benediction by Associate Conference Minister Davina. Thank you, all of you, for attending and being present today.
May I just, before Davina, before you offer the benediction, may I just also point out in the box, Epi, you're receiving many thanks for your amazing service. And of course, I add my thanks to all that you do for us. Also, Daniel, thank you for all your hard work you've done to make this meeting work so well. And Jim Ross has written that. And there are a couple people who have pointed out how smooth the gavel transition was. And I know you two were really hard on that. It was really appreciated. And then I also want to raise, many of you read the newsletter this past week about the Conference Council's very difficult decision to end our relationship, our agreement with United Camps, Conferences, and Retreats for managing Camp Cazadero due to COVID-19 and the money that it would require for us to stay in this when there is no income coming into the camp. I will tell you that there are several committees that are in place and working very hard, both on how we protect the sacred and valuable asset that we have to do conference ministry. And there's an interim committee working on the immediate needs for managing the camp, as well as the long-term needs for how that will be done. And then also in relation to the budget, and there are obviously financial concerns and issues. And before presenting the budget on October 24th, the intent is that the Camp Revisioning Task Force that's working to bring a proposal to the conference for affirmation to begin to keep working in that direction as well. And because that's all tied in with the budget, and how we address some of the shortfalls that we've been having in terms of the budget. The Finance and Business Committee is working hard on creating a budget proposal. And I believe that their intent is there will be several draft scenarios of the budget that will involve how we can do all of the programs that we want to do and that we've been doing now, and how we can move forward. And there will be at least one, if not two, forums between now and then to discuss those different scenarios. And then based on that, the Conference Council will decide which budget to propose on October 24th for approval at the annual gathering, so that we can have our budget for 2021. So I want you to know that even though those were not things that were on the agenda for today, and so we could not talk about it, we are working on it. We do have a plan in place, and we will be moving forward.
Thank you.
Let us be in a spirit of prayer. And if you would just take a moment just to close your eyes with me. Precious Lord, take our hands and lead us on. God of our coming and goings, God of our past, our present, and our future, we have met, we have celebrated, we have remembered. We have also visioned, shared hopes, dreamed dreams. God, in these troubled times of pandemic, murder, injustice, be with us. Have mercy upon us. Empower us all to be a voice of change. As we now go out into the world, in which we must do, may you be with us in our living and in our ministering. Remind us that we do not go alone. Remind us that we go with a mission and a purpose. Lord, our God, fill us with love and peace to share with the world. May our lives and our ministries be signs of your love and promises and possibilities. May the peace of Christ be with you until we meet again. In the name of our Creator God, the name of Christ Jesus, and in the name of the Holy Spirit, we do pray. Ashe and Amen.
Ashe and amen. The time is 1 o'clock exactly. The meeting is adjourned.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.